Hi, Stuti. Thank you so much for being a part of the three-episode series on women and the relationship with money. We have been associated for over 4 years, and if I walk back in time, I remember my first meeting with you. You were this very clear, precise woman wanting to put her idle money to work as soon as possible. Um, Before I get down to, just asking a few things about how you perceive money, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, and then I could move on.
Sure. Currently, I'm working in my family business. We are in the business of manufacturing polyester yarn, and I am the second generation in this business. My father and my uncles started this business 30 years ago, and it's been 5 years for me in this business. I primarily handle finance, corporate finance, purchase, imports, and some operational things, as well as technology at the company as of now.
Okay. So, Stuti, in my 8 years of being a wealth manager, I have not seen that it's very common for women talking finance. And I know you just told us that you handle corporate finance. I'm sure you also experience not many women are in this domain of corporate finance or anything to do with finance. So what made you interested in this sphere of subject, and what made you start taking money decisions for yourself?
A couple of things I would say. One, I have studied finance most of my life. I'm a commerce student in school. I took finance in my undergraduate, and during my MBA, finance was one of my specialties, operations being the other. So finance is something which I've always liked. One, it's to do with numbers, which has always been something I've enjoyed, and it's a very tangible thing. Like there is for most times there is some logic to it. I wouldn't say always at the stock market, but most times, it's very logical. If you make the right decision, generally you do well. And those are the kind of fields I prefer. And that's why even in my company, if you'll see all the fields I talked about, I didn't talk about marketing and all. I like more logical, more process driven fields, and finance is one of them.
Right. So I also know that you have joined your family business. So you've grown up in a business family, right?
Right.
Growing up, did you see the women in the family, or even normally the dinner table conversations, being around finance, numbers, loans, investments, savings? Did you grow up in that environment? Did that have any influence on why you started liking finance?
100%. I would say, I think it's not about being from a family business. It's more about, I would say, my dad. So my dad, from a very young age, post his MBA, he's always been the person who's done all the investments in our family, whether it was in real estate, whether it was in the stock market, whether it was looking at new ideas. In his very young age, when the first tech boom happened, which was in the 90s, 2000, and then the tech bubble also happened, he actually started a venture of his own in technology at time. So he's always been looking for new opportunities. And because of him, we've always heard a lot about the stock market or real estate. And even at dinner tables, there's a lot of discussion between merits of different investment opportunities. Like, for example, my Tauji or my Chachu have very different opinions on, say, money versus my dad. So we've always heard discussions around that. And I think because I've always liked maths and numbers, it always interested me.
That's an interesting point. I think I've seen that when we first met around 4 years back, you turned out to be a very out and out pro equity kind of a person, which is very uncommon because on one hand I meet so many I speak to so many women, right, and a lot of them are extremely risk averse. And then there's a small chunk of women who are very ambitious, about wealth creation, their goals, and the kind of instruments they want to invest in. Your comfort with equity, was it because of the fact that you have grown up seeing your father experiment with this asset class? And I know that was a time when equity wasn't very all pervasive amongst families,
Yes.
right? Not everybody was investing in equity at that point in time as opposed to now. So was that the reason, or were your fundas about compounding very clear in your head?
I think my relationship with equity uh, has been both positive and negative because of my father. I have seen him go through really good times and really bad times with it, which is why I don't directly buy shares even today. Because I've seen him because once you start investing on your own, you tend to get hooked on. It's a very
Yeah.
addictive industry, according to me, to a large extent. So because of that, I was very clear that yes, equity is a great way to increase your wealth if you're willing to take risks and if you have a long-term horizon. And that's something not just from him, not just from my dad, but also through, my education. I've learned about that, right? That yes, of course, if you're planning to do trading, which is short term, then it's a lot more closer to, say, gambling, or there's a lot more risk. But all in all, in a market like India, which is obviously going to grow, if you have a 5 year, 10 year horizon, there's a very low probability, at least according to me, that you're going to lose money if you have a balanced portfolio. So I think that's why I'm very pro equity. Secondly, the other reason for me being very pro equity is I have the appetite to take risks because I'm not looking at any very big purchases in the next 5, 10 years, and that's something both me and my husband have been clear about. And if we have that clarity, we feel we have that privilege of taking that risk, which people who are either planning to buy a house or planning for any other big investment cannot take that risk because they know they'll need that money in the next like 3 years. So
Yeah.
and I think if you have a big time horizon, then equity is the best way to go.
But do you think that this trend is changing in the sense that in your circle of friends, women friends, or on, let's say, on WhatsApp groups, do you see that more women are talking about investments or equity or wealth creation, or this is still, we are still far away from that time?
I think if you're talking about equality between, say, the amount men and women talk about finance or handle their finances, I think we're a long way ahead. Even in my friend circles or my acquaintances, primarily it is the men or the husbands who take major financial decisions, and it's not because the women can't. It's more they don't want to. They, I think, as a society overall, we still it's still the men who will end up discussing investment opportunities with each other. Women traditionally don't do that. Even I end up talking about it more with my guy friends because some of my girlfriends, because they're not doing it, then they're not interested in it or they don't have any inputs on it. So I would say we are still a long way to go. It is changing because now there are a lot more women who are earning and are independent, financially independent, and they are finally, moving away from just leaving their money in saving accounts. I know a lot still do, but I think finally people also with more financial education, whether it's online, whether it's on TV, also with how easy it's become with apps like say ET Money or a Zero Dha or Grow. These things have made it a lot easier to even dabble a little with it. Like very honestly, how I started investing also, right? I think the first investment I did was in a mutual fund, which was over 10 years ago. And that was literally I installed ET Money and I went through their multiple mutual funds and equity, saw their trends of the last 3, 5 years, and I just did a SIP of 4,000 rupees because that's all I could do at that time. But my point is just by doing that, because it was so easy to do it, and that was some disposable income I had, I at least got a sense of it. And then after 4, 5 months of doing that, I got a comfort. And I think that's what's changing with technology and all. It's becoming a little easier to make those decisions, and you're not as scared of it. I think like earlier it was
Of
all
course, I
through
mean, yeah,
through brokers or
technology, I think, has served as an enabler.
yeah,
And I think also, the fact that, so regularly we are reading about these things. I mean, the access to
exactly,
information has also become, I think it's a double-edged sword, because as much as you have access to information, I think there are a lot of people I talk to who are also overwhelmed by the amount of information
100%. I
available.
think
And
that's
then
true
again,
for
they face
everything
this
today.
problem of decision paralysis.
Yes,
Yeah, true for everything. Uh, but I think you pointed this out very correctly, Stuti, that even amongst our circles, a lot of women are still, very comfortable to step back and not take, an active role in this. And I don't think there's a problem in that setup. I think the problem is when women are not aware, or
yes,
are not involved at all. And a lot of women that I talk to right now, I see that in their heads they are very financially comfortable because they are working, they are getting a decent salary, they have the autonomy to spend, and they also have a comfortable surplus. And because the surplus over time accumulates in the bank, they are able to see that money very close to themselves. So in their mind, there's a perceived sense of being wealthy, right? You are somebody who has always been very comfortable investing, not seeing that money in your bank. Do you think that in your experience, in your friend circle network, women tend to misunderstand the concept of financial independence? Because financial independence is not really having enough money today,
Yeah.
it's having enough wealth so that you don't need to work for money in the future, right? You have those freedom of choices.
Hmm. So I would say I don't think it's a women only problem. I think it's a general problem with our or in general the education system. I think most of us are not given any financial education, personal finance education. So not just my women friend, I would say even if a lot of my guy friends feel that if they're just saving money in their bank accounts, that's good enough. And then, when you explain to them that inflation currently is at say 6-7%, and their savings account is giving them maybe 4-5%, they're actually losing money in the real term. But because these were things taught to us as macroeconomics and not from a personal point of view. I mean, we all learned inflation at some point, right? But it's always taught from a country point of view or from a macro global
Yeah.
point of view. So I think it's a lack of education, not just for women, but for just the younger generation in general. I was lucky because, like I said, because my dad is in the finance field and I've studied finance, I have that now education as well as family atmosphere, which makes me more aware of these things. I think the book Psychology of Money, which is one of my favorite books for this particular topic, also puts it across very well. And that's why now online also you're seeing a lot more uh, content around personal finance because I think people are realizing that leaving money in the bank is not good enough. But that awareness is still very, very minimal, I would say. And that's just I think that needs education to everyone, women, men, especially when just graduating or doing your first job. Like I remember, like just last week, we were having a conversation with my friends, married couple, and neither of them were doing any investments. And they were like, no, we don't have enough surplus. We said, but you don't need to have 50K surplus. You need to have 5K surplus to start investing in a SIP or even in anything. So this is a general problem, I would say,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think it's a myth that people have that we need to first have a lot of money to start investing.
Yes.
And and they keep waiting for that lot of money to happen and it never happens. And I think it was also you've also rightly pointed out that it's not a gender specific thing, but I think what I have seen in my experience is that the number of men who understand all of this is higher than the number of women who do.
So I would say that is more of a societal thing. I think men
Yeah.
are by default, uh, in most cases, almost told by their parents, their friend circle, everyone that they are responsible for the overall financial stability of them and their family. Women are generally not told that. So women who do it are doing it out of their very individual sense of being. While in men, it's not just themselves, it's family, social, external, I wouldn't say pressure, but in a way, external motivation to do that also. Like it's almost like inherently they've been told that this is something you need to understand because you will need to do it at some point in your life. It's almost like, sadly, cooking. Most women are taught how to cook because they're told you will have to cook at some point, right? It's like that almost. It's not the same, but it's that kind of mentality, and that's why
Yeah.
you'll see even now, like if both were not investing, it's still the guy who will be told how come you're not investing. If a
Yeah.
girl doesn't invest, it's okay. But it'll be very
Yeah.
normal. So I think
Yeah,
that's the
I
other
agree. I agree.
reason.
I absolutely, yeah, I talk about the same thing very often that, I mean, men can never take a sabbatical without being, raised fingers at. But it's in them. I mean, within them, they'll feel very guilty if they are not being able to provide the maximum for the family. But if women are not doing it, it's okay. And I think most of the women who are contributing to family finances significantly are doing it by choice, by their own individual aspirations.
Yes.
And I think the point that you made about inflation, and we all learn about inflation, I think the problem is because we have not gone through it as a normal education system. Intuitively, we are not able to imbibe it.
Yes.
We always see our parents talking about, they being able to buy a piece of, let's say, mithai for 50 paise, and now it's like 40
Yeah.
rupees. But I mean, it all seems like a story to us, right? We don't really imbibe it. um as something that's real, that's going to happen with us as well. And I always talk about this concept of lifestyle inflation. So I was talking to a client today morning, and I was telling them that don't just assume that your costs are going to rise at 7%, because at some point you will just upgrade your lifestyle, and that
Exactly.
upgradation comes at a different cost. So yeah, I think that's a great point, Suti. And before we sign off, what would you think is has been your best financial decision as a woman?
I think one, to diversify. So as pro equity as I am, I still have ensured that, 20-25% of our at least investments are in non-equity, which is either gold or debt or liquid. But I think just investing as early as possible would be my best decision because I mean, we all hear great stories, whether it's about Bill Gates or, and I know we've all heard the stories that these guys started investing really early. And that's what actually led to their wealth more than anything else. And compounding is this magical thing. But I think
Yeah,
only when you start investing, you see it. Because now the investments I did 5 years back, their value, now I can see it. But unfortunately, when you start investing, the first year or two, you don't see it.
yeah,
So, so it's one of those things you only learn by doing. I don't think
yeah.
people can tell you as much, but the joy of it and the real value of it, you only get by doing it.
Correct. So when we, usually do reviews, and, for people who've been clients for 6, 7 years, when we look at that chart of how much did they invest versus what's the value, first 2, 3 years, they are almost at the, they kind
It's
of
very linear.
merge together. Yeah, very linear.
Yeah,
And that whole compounding. And however, I feel, while that is showing in the fourth, fifth, sixth year, the real, exponential impact is seen maybe 10 years down the line.
of
That's
course.
when. But I think the collective problem is that it's very difficult to be patient for something that you can't visualize very easily
It's
for
with
like
any
10
habit,
years.
honestly. It's
Yeah,
with any habit, right? It's like that's why they say going to the gym is hard because it
yeah,
takes long to show eating better. I think
yeah.
it's anything which you need to do consistently for a very long time
It's very difficult.
has a compounding effect, but unfortunately, it's also harder to do.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so Stuti, just one last question. We have both agreed that, I mean, the trend is changing, but still a lot of women are not being able to take charge of their money, or are very comfortable in the way they are. What do you think one thing that we can do to encourage those women to understand why it's important to start getting involved with their money? What's the one thing that the industry can do, or we as individuals could do?
I think so I would say it's a little difficult to make a very major impact in some ways because like I said, a lot of it comes from upbringing and how you, like in my case, I think a lot of it I would say comes from my upbringing, right? Because my dad was very proactive and always discussing things with both me and my brother, and not just with my brother. Or it was never that my brother had to do certain things and I didn't. I was the elder kid also, so I think that helped. Uh, so I think my upbringing, I'm being from a family business where finances are just talked about, or investments are something. It's a regular conversation and not very remote thing. I think that obviously played a very big role. Having said that, that doesn't mean all my cousins are also doing this, right? It's not that just upbringing is not just everything because within the same family we have people who are interested in finance and who are not at all interested in finance. But yes, that I think is a very major thing because I think women are constantly told they don't need to worry about money, and that I am not sure how we can, that's a bigger question. But I think education is the only way to overall make a difference. Like, the more you can educate women in women-specific forums, whether it's, a Leap
Yeah.
Club, which is a very women-centric
Yeah.
club. There is that portal which is for women, hiring women only. Sorry, I'm she rose. So tying up with places like
Yeah.
these who are already helping women get empowered, say through jobs and all, and then you automatically get to interact with women who are maybe just starting a job or have been working for 2 3 years, which means they've now got that surplus, which ideally they should start investing. I think getting in touch with them and educating them on the benefits of it and the various ways to do it, because everyone has a different risk appetite, right? But making them understand that you don't have to take a risk, right? There are very low risk opportunities which are still better than leaving your money in a
Yeah.
FD or a savings account, right? So I think those would be some touch points where I think a lot of impact can be made, because there are
Mm.
generally then women who won. Also, I feel if women start investing before they get married, they'll automatically continue doing it. I think once women get married, traditionally, I'm not saying all, but traditionally, it automatically goes to, ki, oh, the husband will take care of it. So,
Yeah.
but if they've already started, then they're already aware of it and they'll be more interested in it also.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that was very engaging and insightful, Stuti. It was, I'm sure, a lot of us who have been watching this video today have been able to gain some insights into, especially around the fact that starting early is important, and that's a gender neutral subject, and it's not about men handling money more than women. It could be a joint exercise, it could be an individual exercise, but the point is we need to be a part of it, because women are becoming a very, very inherent part of the workforce, and
Yes.
money is just an outcome of that. So thank you so much, Stuti, for taking out time and joining us. It was lovely chatting with you today, and let's catch up soon.
No, no, definitely. One last thing I would just like to say is I think like everyone should just realize how you should make your money work for you. And that's something, so my dad always says that to me. And I would say, yes, we are all earning, but you should always have a part of your money which is working by itself, where even if I don't come to
Yeah.
office for the next 6 months or a year, that money is still making money for me without me being there. And I think that's the biggest beauty of any investment. It doesn't have to be stocks or anything. It can be something as simple as real estate or gold also. They
Yeah.
might have different horizons, but
Mm.
everyone should move towards at least having some part of the money work on its own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think because we can only work as much. And
Yeah, we have 24 hours a day.
yeah,
We know we have to sleep 8 hours, we have to eat for
yeah,
2 3 hours. So you have limited time, whatever said
yeah,
and done, right?
yeah,
And even if you sleep 4 5 hours a day, you can do that for a X amount of years. You will burn
yeah,
out.
yeah,
So if you can get your money to work for itself, there's nothing like it. And I know it's
absolutely.
hard. I'm not saying it's super easy, because unfortunately, I think the other problem is there's a lot of pseudo success stories online also. There are some
Yeah,
very genuine success stories, but there's a lot of, like you said, misinformation also.
yeah,
So it's very important to have someone advise. Like in my case, the reason, I always thought advising versus doing it completely on my own. It's not that I can't. It's not my core business. It's not my core
mm,
function. So I also feel the kind of uh, mind space you need
mm,
to do investing on your own. It is a lot. So by giving it to someone else or by getting someone to advise you, you have a lot more positive mindset. You know someone's looking at the market, because that's what they do. That's their
yeah,
job, right? And it's not your job. So you literally have that someone doing it, so you don't have to continuously read about foreign exchange, read about inflation, read about the market, because these things change every day, every hour,
yeah,
right? So I think that's the other thing I would say, that you should definitely get someone who can help you, advise you, if you can't give 4 5 hours a day to this, or at least 3 hours a day to this.
yeah. So I slightly differ to that in the sense that you don't need to give 3 hours a day to this. But what
I mean,
happens,
yeah, you can.
yeah, and I was talking to somebody, last weekend, and that friend was saying that, look, we work Monday to Friday, we only get a weekend, right? And we don't want to make money management a work for us,
Yes.
because there's so many other things to do. We want to spend time with the child, we want to meet family, we want to meet friends, we want to just chill. know that we don't have any pressure on our mind to do something, and that's why we want to outsource it. So most of the people I work with, they are not people who don't understand the space, but there are people who don't
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
time or the
That's
mind
what I'm
space,
saying.
like you
It's a
said.
very time
Yeah,
thing. Like I do
yeah,
invest on my own, but it's just small amount.
yeah,
Because I'm like, if I start doing primary investments on my own, then I know it'll take my mind space.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
I don't want to divert that mind space to
absolutely.
investments.
Agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Suti. I think it was very useful because you're one of those women I know that who started investing really, really early, and you were always very serious and very clear with what you wanted out of your money. That kind of a direction is not easily available, and I'm sure that a lot of women watching this today are going to be inspired by you. So thank you so much, and look forward to meeting you very soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.